don't matter what your name is, share your story. We'll be waiting, yeah, for the haters, whoa.
Welcome back to For the Haters podcast. Today we are joined by Kortney, who after multiple IUIs and years of trying to grow her family, Kortney became pregnant with twins, Kinsley and Cameron. At 21 weeks, her cervix opened early and her pregnancy shifted into something no parent prepares for. Today, Kortney walks us through the hospital days, the delivery of her twins at 21 weeks, the logistics that followed, and the life she continued to build while carrying their memory forward. This is her story. There's a version of life we quietly build in our heads. Timelines, expectations, how things are supposed to be. And then there are moments that don't follow any of it. The ones that arrive without warning and somehow still change everything. For Kortney, it didn't start with fear. It started with something she had been waiting for.
We were finally at the appointment. I think it was 6 or 7 weeks that you could see the ultrasound finally. And they were going through and I was like, wow, like I've never experienced this. Like this is all new to me. So we're doing the ultrasound and they see the baby and she's going over and making sure everything's looking all right. She's like, there's not just one in here. And my eyes get really big. My husband's like, what? And so yeah, she's like, there is more than one in here. And
wow.
We were just so shocked.
Sometimes things you prayed for don't arrive in the way you imagine them. Not smaller, not simpler, but bigger, louder, harder to hold all at once. And in that moment, there's no roadmap for how to feel. Just the realization that life is about to look very different than you thought.
Before we even started trying to get pregnant, I had actually gone just to a follow-up OB appointment. I was having some issues and I was actually diagnosed probably when I was 24, 25 of PCOS. And with that comes with the possibility of being unable to get pregnant. And so hearing that at 24, 25, and I'm engaged, that kind of rocked my world. And got real upset with that. And so going into marriage, you were like, we're just going to take a year. Like, let's just us be us in our marriage. Thinking, oh yeah, you will get pregnant right away. You know, you grow up thinking that, oh, you have sex one time and you're going to get pregnant.
Always the fear that's just like instilled into you.
Yeah. And so that was clearly not the case. So we tried for a year and then couldn't get pregnant due to the PCOS. And so then we seeked out fertility.
Because this moment didn't come easily. I've known Kortney since college, long before any of this was part of her story. And what came after that moment was years of learning how much of this process is completely out of your control. After doctor visits that start to blur together, after schedules built around appointments instead of life, after slowly realizing that something so natural for others can become all-consuming for you. And somewhere along the way, hope starts feeling simple. Was that choice to go into IUI, was that what was presented to you to try IUI first?
We could have, obviously we were trying for a year naturally and nothing was happening. So, we had to go through all that testing, see what the clear issues were and what then was our best possible way to get pregnant. And since I had the PCOS, I was unable to get pregnant naturally.
Mm-hmm. Did they present you with IVF or was IUI the first option that you were trying?
Yeah, so they put out all the options there for us. IVF sounds super scary in the beginning. It's very overwhelming and very expensive. So we decided to do the IUI option first, hoping that it would come easy for us.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it did not come easy for us at all.
It becomes routine in a way that doesn't feel routine at all. Because even the starting point of all of this, IUI, or intrauterine insemination, is still something you have to plan your life around. It's timed, it's scheduled, it's clinical. The sperm is placed directly in the hope that it can give you a better chance. And while it's often the first step, it still carries so much weight because you know that there's another level after it. IVF, in vitro fertilization, where everything becomes more involved, more invasive, more demanding. Retrieval, fertilization outside of the body, then placing an embryo back in. So you hold on to this version of it, hoping it works here before you have to go any further. And over time, you start measuring everything differently, not in months, but in cycles, in appointments, in waiting. And every time you try again, you're asked to believe it could work, even when you're already carrying the weight of every time it didn't.
What did a typical month of treatments look like for you?
So we started off with, I had to go through different rounds of treatment to see what best worked for me, unfortunately. You know, there's two different kinds of pills, the Clomid and letrozole, and then there's injectables. We were trying all the different options. Obviously, injectables are the worst case scenario in an IUI. They're the most intense. So obviously we tried the pill option first. And sometimes the pills wouldn't even work to where we could even get to an IUI. And then I don't remember which one it worked for the pill, but it would be about a month long. I feel like, oh my gosh, it's so long ago. But I feel like it was like a month-long process of taking the pills, going in and tracking your cycles. I mean, I was going in depended on where you were in the cycle, like maybe every 3 to 5 days, getting the blood work, going and getting the ultrasound and that. And it's not easy because I'm a full-time worker. And you had to go in before your shift and making sure. So it was a lot of logistics and planning. And I was someone who hated my blood being taken, and I quickly got used to that. So, yeah. And then once it was ready, it was time, then we went in to do the IUIs. They always did 2. So it would be day 1, you do your IUI, and then the second day they do it again, just in case, hoping it would take. So it was never like it's one time and then I have to wait 10 days. I was going in 2 days. Both my husband and I had to go in to collect his sperm and then to go and me do the procedure. So taking time off work for that's obviously a lot. And we planned our lives around IUI and fertility for so many years. And that gets a little exhausting.
It's a commitment. I know that a lot. Like, I even know people quit their jobs to be able to just focus on their fertility journey because of how consuming it is. You have certain time periods that you need to be able to get to a doctor's office, get testing, get your blood work, know when triggers are and all of the things.
Yes. And I was very blessed to be in a job that I had some of that flexibility. I could show up to work late, or I could take off of work in a couple days notice or take a half a day or whatever. So to some of the employers out there or, the people who are working in those tough jobs, I see why they'd have to quit or pause on that.
Yeah. And not even just scheduling what it does to your body too, right?
Yes.
The emotional roller coaster that it brings you on.
The emotional roller coaster for sure, because, we went through many trial and errors, and every time you hear no, it crushes you, absolutely crushes you.
Yeah. Cause you have hope, right? Like because you know that there is a possibility.
Yeah.
Hope starts to change shape after a while. It's not this big, bright feeling anymore. It gets quieter, more cautious, something you hold on to carefully because you've already felt what it's like to lose it. And when it finally turns into something real, there's almost a part of you that doesn't know what to do with it.
How many IUI cycles did you end up going through?
The twins were our 5th cycle. With that, there were times that we had to cancel cycles because with the injectables, there's always a concern that your body goes into overdrive and you're creating too many follicles. And you don't want too many follicles when you're ready to release the sperm and the egg because you don't wild things happen. So I've also had to cancel cycles, and that's hard.
Where were you when you found out that you were pregnant with the twins?
So fascinating. It was at work. And that's hard to plan too, because 10 days after you're going to get your blood work and you could be anywhere. It could be you could be lucky and it'd be a Saturday or a Sunday, or you could be really unlucky and you're getting called. And there were sometimes I was taking calls and I had to jump out of meetings.
Yeah.
And that was hard because then I'd have to go back into that meeting and act like absolutely nothing happened. And that's a hard reality of infertility too. But, you know, I got the phone call. I was sitting in my office and I closed the door and my nurse was on the phone. I said, I could just tell, because I've gotten these phone calls so many times, and I knew it was the time I wanted to hear what I was going to hear. And she told me, Kortney, you are pregnant. And I just immediately lost it. And of course, my husband wasn't there because I was at work. He was at work. And I stopped her and I said, let's dial my husband Tyler in. And as soon as he heard the news too, I mean, he was so happy and crying. And we were just so overjoyed that this was finally our time. We were finally hearing the words that we had waited so long for.
After the shock of finding out she wasn't just pregnant, but pregnant with twins, everything shifts, because this isn't just the thing she's been waiting for. It's more than that. More to hold, more to process, more that suddenly feels at stake. There's a moment when everything you've been working towards finally happens. And instead of relief being clean and simple, it comes with everything you've been carrying. The waiting, the doubt, the exhaustion. It doesn't disappear, it just shifts.
That comes with a mix of emotions too, like, oh my gosh, how are we going to handle twins? And, you know, like, are we prepared? I don't know if I'm ever going to be prepared for one, let alone two. Yeah. So it was shocking. It was happy. Like, it just still like a pinch me moment, because it's like, I can't believe I'm finally here and I'm able to do this.
What did the conversation look like when you got home with your husband? Was it just like, oh shit, what do we do now?
It was a very oh shit moment. Yeah. Obviously, you know, we were so grateful to finally get to be able to be pregnant, but it's like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting multiples. Obviously, there's a lot of risks that come with multiples, and that we were very upfront with, and appointments and everything looked so much different from like a singleton pregnancy than after that point.
And for a little while, things move in the direction they're supposed to. Appointments, check-ins, milestones. The kind of progress you learn to celebrate quietly, because you know how quickly things can change.
So with being a high-risk pregnancy and carrying multiples, I was with my high-risk doctor every 2 weeks. I had to go in, get an ultrasound of the babies, and then also get my cervix checked, because with multiple pregnancies, there's a risk with the cervix. So up until 20 weeks, everything was looking fine. There was no cause for concern. They just wanted to keep seeing me every 2 weeks. And then my 20-week anatomy scan came back, and my husband was finally able to come to this appointment with me. I think it was his first one that he was able to come and see the twins and be there. And, you know, the 20-week anatomy scan, you see so much. Like, it's a very overwhelming appointment, and there's a lot to see. But this one just felt a little different. So the babies looked wonderful. They were very healthy, moving around a lot. By that point, I was feeling them both. And so that was a lot of fun. But then the ultrasound tech said to me, okay, like, I'm just going to go review the images with the doctor, and we'll be back in to see you. Doctor never came into that room to see me. I was always going to just like a meeting space room to go over everything and make sure everything was okay. So that's when the panic started to hit. It just felt a lot different. The tech was a lot more quiet than she usually was. So they reviewed the images for what felt like hours.
And then suddenly everything speeds up. Conversations change. The tone changes. The way people look at you changes. And you realize you've crossed into something else entirely without ever seeing where the line was.
And my doctor came in and said, Kortney, she's like, first, the babies look great. Everyone looks healthy. They're growing as needed, but your body is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. At that point, she had told me that my cervix had completely opened and it was very, very short. So she said, you will need to get to the hospital right away, and they're going to put in a cerclage for you, and that will keep everything closed and for you to carry the babies safely as long as possible. I said, okay. I said, do I have time to go grab a bag of things, clothes or whatever? And she said, no, you need to go right away. So she's like, I'm calling the hospital now and they'll be expecting you. And in that moment, I was just extremely grateful that my husband was there for me And in that support, he was in a very tough job at the time that he couldn't get out. He worked in the gas industry, so it was tough for him to get out and have that flexibility. So I was very happy that he was able to come with me and drop everything and we could go together. And it was a 5-minute drive from the doctor's office to the hospital, and my mind was just racing.
There's a point where you stop thinking long term. You're not thinking about months anymore or even weeks. You're thinking about right now. What needs to happen next? What still can be done? And how tightly you hold on to something that suddenly feels fragile.
I immediately called my mom and we were crying together and just trying to stay hopeful for the babies. Then we get to the hospital and they start hooking me up with everything and start monitoring the babies. And of course, they're doing wonderful. And then I had to go for an amniocentesis, which is such a painful procedure. They have to go in and then they're taking fluid from a very big needle out of my stomach to test for infections. And then in that point, they're also seeing that I am having contractions. And with contractions, unfortunately, I was not able to get a cerclage at that point, which then is putting, the babies at risk. So I ended up staying into the hospital. I was not able to get a cerclage at that point. And then they were putting me on medications to hopefully stop those contractions and stop me from going into labor. And that turned into a very long roller coaster. There were days that I was doing good. My body was doing what it was supposed to do. It was settling down and hoping to go home. And then the next day, my body was contracting. And so we were just trying to get it to stop so we could put that cerclage in. And it was COVID, so I couldn't have any visitors. It was very lonely. My husband was thankfully allowed to be there, but that was it.
Was there any signs that you felt like there was something wrong?
So I was doing fine, I think, up until like maybe that last couple days. I started having like lower back pain. But, carrying twins is not easy on the body. And I'm a smaller person. So I just chalked it up to like, wow, just going through the body pains. And it was my first time being pregnant. I don't know what to expect. Like all this was so new for me. And at that time, before I went in for my 20-week ultrasound, I had a German Shepherd and he was my soul dog and I just lost him this October. So, but he'd never leave my side. And he always was putting his head on my belly and like he knew I was pregnant before I was pregnant, and in that moment before I had that scan, he never left my side on a good day, but that he was eyes on me all the time. And it's just like looking back on that, I think he knew something was wrong and he was trying to protect and that. So, but the symptoms, I was just having lower back pain and I just chalked that up to having my body stretching and growing, there's a lot of changes that come with that.
It's strange the things your mind holds on to, not the medical terms, not the timelines, but the small moments that don't fully make sense until later. The way something felt off before anything had a name.
There were choices, obviously holding off in the cerclage, like that was a choice that I couldn't make, just for the safety of myself and for the babies potentially. And then I'm going on meds to stop the contractions, but these meds, they drop your blood pressure and I'm going on other meds and I'm crashing. I remember sitting in the hospital one day and like my blood pressure just hit the ground and I'm laying there and I'm freaking out and I'm sweating and I'm crying to my husband and I just want to be home. I just want to be in the comfort of my home. I want my dog. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm not a person who deals with the hospitals well anyways. I don't like to lay around and do nothing. There was nothing I could do. And about halfway through that week, I was put on strict bed rest. I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. I couldn't go to the bathroom. Couldn't go brush my teeth or shower. And that was really hard. And I was getting really frustrated with myself and my body. And I just wanted it to cooperate. Like, we worked so hard to get where we were. And it's just like now, again, my body is failing me and it's not doing what it's supposed to do.
Are you in the hospital then for 7 days?
Yeah.
You make it to 21 weeks. What are the doctors telling you about viability at this point?
Yeah. Viability is technically 24 weeks. but that's 24 weeks for a singleton. You know, you have one baby in your stomach, they have a lot more room to grow. They can grow faster or at a normal pace. With multiples, there's a lot less space for them. And at 20 weeks, we were told that let's try to make it to 24. We're keeping you in the hospital until you are ready to deliver these babies. Like at that point, there was no other option I had. Like I wasn't going home until I had the babies. Mm-hmm. And that seemed daunting in itself too. I'm just like, I can't spend weeks. Like what, you know, I need a paycheck. I need to be home with my dog. I need to take care of this and that's what was on my mind. And it's just like, I look back and it's just like, that wasn't important at that point. Mm-hmm. But I was tired of sitting in a hospital bed. So, you know, we make it through the week. And like I said, it was a lot of highs. It was a lot of lows. You know, one minute we're thinking, oh, they're doing great we'll be fine. But we got to that 7th day, and that morning I just went through excruciating pain, and I said, there's something wrong. And they did checks on me, and they said, Kortney, you are in active labor, and there's nothing we can do. So that was hard. And then that was early morning, and my nurse was there with me, and a lot of the nurses that I had, because I was there for so long, I formed really great relationships with. And I didn't have time to get an epidural. My first baby was coming so quickly. So they were trying to hype me up on morphine and everything they could give me to deliver this baby. And I just remember before I had the first baby, it was, Kortney, you really need to hold this baby. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, it's going to look scary. And it's wild to think now, but like, I can't touch the baby. I can't look at it. Like, it's going to look so foreign to me. And my husband's standing right next to me, and the nurse is over there, and she's like, you need to make her hold that baby. Mm. She's like, she will regret it for the rest of her life if she doesn't. And, the first baby A came out, and that was my daughter, Kinsley. And it came so fast.
When you first saw Kinsley, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
So before I got to her, they took her, and my husband was over there. He had cut the cord, and he was over there with them. You know, they were trying to do what they could, and Kinsley came out breathing. And I will never forget the sobs that my husband made. He's cried, I could count on one hand, and our wedding day being one of them, and then the twins being born, and just the sobs. And they brought her over to me, and I was in such a state of shock, and everything from the morphine and all the meds, like I was inconsolable, and I was just shaking so much, and I was so scared to hold her. So they brought her over, and they held her for me for a while, and I could see her gasping for air. And at 21 weeks, there was nothing that they could do. And that was really hard. Even though she was breathing for a few minutes, there was not enough developed for her to live on her own, or for them to help her live that way. But in that moment, I knew that I had to hold her. So once the shaking had stopped, holding her, and that was a hard day to lose them. But it was also, I was in such a state of shock. Like, a lot of it that day blurred together for me, or, I don't remember a lot of it because I really protected myself from that in my heart. I remember being with them and family coming, but there's just like little things that my brain really protected me from.
There isn't just space to process what just happened. Not really. Because before that moment can even settle, something else is already unfolding. And it's hard to explain what that feels like, to be in the middle of losing one child while still holding on to the possibility of another. Your body hasn't caught up. Your mind hasn't caught up. But everything keeps moving forward anyway. And somehow, you're expected to keep going with it.
How far after you giving birth to Kinsley did baby B come?
So baby B did not come right away. And it was our hope that we were going, my body would stop contracting. It would, labor would end. And let's hope that we could keep baby in for as long as possible. And, the time went by that day, and we were very thankful that they allowed our parents to come in. So all the grandparents got to meet the grandchildren. And, they were sitting there with us and we were crying together and talking. And I had Kinsley around 8 o'clock that morning, and the day was going by, and I hadn't had the baby B. And I'm like, okay, this is going to give us a chance. And my mom was sitting next to me and she was holding Kinsley. And I said, Mom, you need to get a nurse. I said, I think I had the baby. She's like, what? And so a nurse came and they're like, you didn't have the baby, but it's time and baby B's coming. And that was 8 hours later. I had him. I had Cameron 8 hours later. And he did not come out like Kinsley did. He had a cord wrapped around his neck, so he was stillborn. So that was sad in itself. But I always try to tell myself that they needed each other more than I needed them. And that's what I try to hold on to as much as I can, because, as much as I would have loved to have Cameron down here and experiencing life for us, Kinsley needed her brother more and Cameron needed her more. So yeah, it was just a very sad and sombering day. And, once he came, we were able to get them both baptized and spend as much time as we could with them, given the time that we had.
And how much time was that?
So I spent then with them at 24 hours. Unfortunately, when you have a dead child, you only get so much time before their body starts to decompose. But there are tools and there are resources to help keep their bodies stabilized for longer so that you can spend time with them. And with that, we were given a Cuddle Cot. Mm-hmm. And that is a cooling system that goes in a bassinet so that the babies can lay on that. And yeah, their bodies just don't start decomposing faster on their own.
Was there anything about those hours that surprised you the most?
Yeah. Before I gave birth to them, I was so scared to hold them, scared to look at them. I didn't want anything to do with that. And then after they were there, I couldn't, as a mother, I couldn't imagine not, and spending as much time with them and holding them. And even if they were dead and it was so morbid to me, they were still my children and I still wanted to hold them. I wanted to kiss them. I wanted to look at every little finger and toe. And, their eyes were closed and they're so tiny. I mean, they were a little over a pound. So they didn't look morbid to me, and they looked like my perfect, beautiful children.
There's a part of you that wants time to stop completely, to stay exactly where you are, because as long as you're here, you don't have to face what comes next. You don't have to leave them. You don't have to step back into a world that no longer looks the way it did before. But time doesn't wait in moments like this. It keeps moving, quietly, steadily, whether you're ready for it or not. And eventually you're forced to move with it.
How long after giving birth did you have to leave? Were you given a choice to stay, or did you choose to leave?
We were, obviously, I think it's 48 hours, and don't quote me, it might be 24 to 48 hours that you have with them on a cooling cot until it just doesn't work and help anymore. Their bodies start going. So we had them on a Thursday and we left late Friday. And it was that moment. We get to the end and we don't want to leave, but we have to leave. And it's just it's that if we don't leave now, we're never going to leave. And leaving them behind, that's a whole other experience. We were blessed that our nurses put together scrapbooks for the twins. We were given outfits for them that they wore in that time, because what do I have for a baby that I wasn't planning to have for another
20 weeks,
15 to 20 weeks. I had nothing prepared yet. We were lucky we had names picked out for them. And so, we left. I was given 2 brown teddy bears to walk out with. So I was holding something when I left that hospital.
Where do you go when you leave the hospital?
I got wheeled out just like a mom who had her baby. And they wheeled me out the back door, so I didn't have to go past other parents, seeing them go out with their children. And that's a very hard. No one ever expects to walk out of a hospital empty-handed.
Yeah. Do you and your husband go home first?
Yeah, we drove home and I walked in that door and I just burst into tears. And I said, that whole week, there was nothing I wanted more than to just be home. And now I don't want to be home at all. It didn't feel like a home to me. And we had lived there. We had lived in that house for only a few months. We were in deconstruction mode and looking to start their nursery. And I walked in that house and I didn't want to be there.
Yeah. Did you have people showing up?
Yeah, I did. My husband was my rock through all of this, but he was also grieving, and we grieved very differently, and that was hard to understand at first. But my mom was my rock through all of this. Even when I was in the hospital, she was coming and taking our laundry and cleaning my house so I wouldn't have to worry about that. And then coming home, she was there for me every step of the way. And I was always a person that I'm a very independent person. I like to do things on my own or, in that moment in my early grief days, I needed to be surrounded by people. Like I didn't want to be left alone. So I had a lot of support. People were coming over and just spending time with us or cleaning and making us meals so that we wouldn't have to think about anything. So those early days couldn't be left alone.
It doesn't stop. The decisions don't go away. They become something entirely different. And there's something deeply disorienting about that shift, going from planning a future you were just beginning to imagine to making decisions no parent ever expects to make. There's no time to catch your breath, no space to fully understand what just happened. Just questions, paperwork, conversations you never thought you'd have, and somehow you're expected to answer all of them.
Before the twins, I hadn't lost any close relatives. So I didn't know what any of that was looking like. I birthed these children and they were dead. And I had to then think about those next steps. And I'm sitting there filling out paperwork a couple hours after I've given birth to my dead children. And do I want them cremated? Do I want them buried? What funeral home do I want to use? And it's I don't know any of these questions. I just went through birth of 2 children and I am not in the right headspace to make any of these calls. And, I was very lucky to have family step in and be like, this is where you should go. This is what you need to do. Obviously, my husband and I had our wishes on what we wanted for them. But we didn't know what funeral home. We didn't know any of that. So yeah, I had a lot of family step in and help us with that because we were just in such a state of shock and grief that it was nothing that we could imagine. We chose to get them cremated.
There isn't a clear starting point for grief. It doesn't begin in a single moment, and it doesn't move in a straight line. It just becomes part of everything. The quiet moments, the loud ones, the ones you expect to be hard, and the ones that catch you off guard. And in the beginning, it's not about moving forward. It's about getting through the next hour, the next conversation, the next breath, because anything beyond that can feel like too much to hold.
That first year, it was just, I had to take moment by moment. I couldn't even look at what tomorrow was going to bring. I had to stay in the moment or else I would spiral. I lost them on October 22nd of 2020. I lost them on a Thursday. So I was counting down every Thursday of being away from them. I counted every 22nd of the month. It's okay, we're at 1 month. Okay, we're at 3 months. And a year came so fast. So that first year was incredibly hard. And then obviously came the holidays. I had Thanksgiving. I had Christmas. Those were hard. But what hit the hardest was New Year's. I was leaving a year going into the next without my children. And that really hit. And now as time has gone by, it's been 5 years and obviously their anniversary, their birthday hits really hard. Christmas hits really hard. And then there's other days where, I think of them a lot or something pops into my mind and then I'm just having a bad day about it.
Going through the family planning process is complicated. I know this from my own experience too. Leah and I went through a failed transfer and a miscarriage after that. And eventually the question comes back. Not all at once, not in a clear or easy way, but slowly, in conversations that feel heavier than they used to be, in quiet moments where you start to wonder what comes next. Because wanting to try again doesn't mean that grief is gone. It just means you're learning how to carry both at the same time.
What do those conversations look like with you and your husband around when the right time is to try again?
So in the beginning, all I wanted was a child. That was all I wanted. If I could have started that next week, I would have, because I just wanted to hold a baby, and but I so badly wanted to be Cameron and Kinsley, and I was never going to get that back again. So I think we waited till that following spring, maybe April, and obviously we had to go back to the fertility clinic and look at what our next options were, and it wasn't going to be IUI. And because I was with my fertility clinic for so long, I gained real relationships with the doctor, with my nurse. And I mean, I was at that fertility clinic for so many days, and they became my second family. They knew everything about me and my husband. And I walked through those doors and they were crying with me, holding me. And I got in with my doctor and she looked at me and we were talking about options. She said, "We're not moving forward." I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" I said, I'm ready to go to IVF. She's like, "No, you're not. No, you're not." She's like, "Kortney, you're not mentally or emotionally ready for this." I said, "Okay." I said, "I trust you." And you're right. You know, like I walked into that appointment and you walk in with like your head between your legs. And it felt really weird to be back there in that moment. And I was a nervous wreck. And she said, "No, you're not ready. We're not doing it." She's like, "You come back in a couple months and we'll talk." And she was right. I'm so happy that she was able to tell me that she wasn't going to push something on me. She wasn't going to make an extra dollar from me, and because that's what she wanted. She wanted to make sure that I was emotionally okay and that my heart was and head were in the right place.
A couple months go by, you go back, and then you start the IVF process.
Yeah. During those couple months leading up to it, we just spent time focusing on ourselves. You know, I was going through a lot of therapy. I was attending retreats for other lost moms. And I finally felt like, okay, like I can handle this. And so then we go in and we discuss next steps. Obviously, IUI is out of the bucket for us again. One, my body can't handle carrying multiples. We found that out. So IUI, you could become a lot more at risk with that because sometimes you have more follicles, or it might take a really long time just to get one good follicle. So we decided that we were just going to go right to IVF. And that comes with a lot. Like I thought, oh yeah, I can handle this IUI and then go to IVF. That's a whole new ball game.
Yeah.
A lot of shots, more appointments than what I was used to, and a lot of more blood draws because they're watching you like leading up to your retrieval. They're watching you like a hawk because things can change so rapidly. And they also want you to get as many follicles as possible. And with PCOS, like I ran the risk of overstimulation and hyperstimulation. So, you know, we went in for retrieval and I think it was 21 eggs. And then, of course, we're watching my body for OHSS and ovarian hyperstimulation. And so, you know, the days go on and we're working on going through that and counting, see what's dwindling. And then we wanted to get them tested. We made it this far. Like, we're trying to take out as many risks as we possibly can. So we came back with 12 embryos. Wow. And then we sent 8 of them off to get tested, and 7 of them came back normal out of the 8.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
For those that might not have any insight into fertility, I mean, 7 is a really great positive number to have. Although some people might reach that and it still might not end up working out. I mean, that has to feel like a win, a small win in the world of fertility for you.
Yeah. For as many years as we were going through this, you know, it's finally like, okay, things are finally going in our right direction that we want them to go. And we had to take off a month just to give my body a break.
Before doing a transfer.
Yeah, we weren't going right in from a retrieval to a transfer. Plus, with getting them tested, I think that took like 2 weeks to get back. So I had to wait. And then, so obviously with testing, you can find out the genders. And we found out we had 1 girl and the rest were all boys. Wow. So we had a full football team waiting.
Wow.
and teach their own. You can decide what you want to do. For us, we just wanted the strongest embryo. We didn't care what it was. We just wanted a healthy, living child.
Yeah.
So we put that through and we did the transfer, and you're still waiting 10 days on pins and needles and wondering if anything's happening. And we get to day 10 and it worked. We were pregnant. It's like, oh my gosh, like, okay, we got this. We can do it. But in the back of my mind, like, I had that fear.
Even when things start to go right, it doesn't feel the way that you imagined it would. There's no clear sense of relief, no moment where everything suddenly feels safe. Because once you've experienced how quickly things can change, that awareness stays with you. In every appointment, every milestone, every moment that's supposed to feel exciting. There's always a part of you that's still bracing for something to go wrong.
I was classified as a high risk because of losing the twins. I mean, then at that point, I was going in for weekly cervical checks.
Wow.
Until we made it to 24 weeks to make sure, just in case they needed to give me a cerclage right away. So that was a lot more appointments. And then with an IVF pregnancy, you're at a high risk even more,
yeah.
and then you're getting more appointments. So I was with the doctor every week.
Do you have a pretty, air quote, normal pregnancy, all things considered?
Yes, there were a couple small things that came up through ultrasounds, but then they ended up resolving on their own. As much as those going in every week and trying to work with my work schedule, it just felt so reassuring every week seeing that my daughter was okay, I was okay, my body was finally doing what it was supposed to be doing. And then I chose to get induced with her. Just because I wanted to make sure she was not past her due date. I wanted her to be safely in my arms.
This time, there are choices again, real ones, not decisions made in crisis, but ones made with intention. And even something as simple as that carries weight because it's a reminder of everything that wasn't possible before.
Choosing to be induced is a lot more typical in IVF situations. It's offered in those situations as well.
When you're in an IVF pregnancy, they don't want you going after a certain amount of time because there are complications and you put in a lot more money.
Time and money. Yeah.
Time and money, yes. So I respect that. And all I wanted at the end of the day, they ask your birth plan. I just wanted a healthy living child.
Yeah.
And I went through that. I remember putting a sign outside my door. She is not our first child. She has an older brother and sister up in heaven, Cameron and Kinsley. So please feel free to mention our angels and don't ask about her being our first child. Things of that nature. And so with being induced, that comes though with sometimes a longer labor. I was in labor for 24 hours. I pushed for 4 hours.
Oof.
It was horrible. Horrible.
Goodness.
I should have had an emergency C-section. Since I was pushing for 4 hours, she came out not breathing. And I was so mad and so angry. And there I was laying on the table hemorrhaging. And my husband and I are just like, this can't happen again. We're not doing this. Like, I am not leaving this hospital without a child.
Mm-hmm.
So they got her to breathe, but of course she had to be taken right to NICU. I held her for 2 seconds, 2 seconds while I was laying there hemorrhaging. So they got me all stitched up and they finally were able to take me down to the NICU and they had to monitor her there. She wasn't in my room with me and we had to leave the hospital again without a child.
Wow.
So she was born on the 5th. And then due to insurance purposes, I had to go home on the 7th. And then she didn't get to come home until the very next day with us.
Minimal, but still traumatic.
Yeah, still traumatic. It ripped open so many wounds for my husband and I.
Bringing her home should have felt like the moment everything settled. But it doesn't land that way. Because even with her in your arms, there's still so much more that hasn't been resolved. The fear doesn't disappear. It just changes shape. And now it shows up in entirely new ways.
She came home. Obviously, there's that relief. I finally am having a healthy, living child. I get to hold her and kiss her, and she's there with us every minute of the day. But I also went through really bad postpartum depression with her. and I just couldn't connect with her. And that was really hard because just like I went through so many years of trying to get a child. I lost children to get you, and I love you, but something was missing, and I was just in such a dark hole for a while, and like I couldn't get up to do anything. My husband, my mom, they were all really worried about me. Like, this isn't Kortney, you know. I couldn't be left alone. I couldn't be left alone with her. I didn't know how to do anything. Like, leaving the house for the first time with her. Like, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that. It's like, you can. So going through therapy with that, and it was a couple weeks of that, and then the blues start to fade, and I had breastfeeding issues with that too. And for people who don't understand, like, and you put that pressure on yourself for that first baby, and it's like, it doesn't matter. And to each their own with their own opinions, but a fed and happy baby is what's best. It doesn't matter if I can't give what that baby needs. Like, I can still give her formula. It doesn't have to be my milk that's not coming in.
Yeah. Leah and I went through a lot of discussions, and I couldn't understand the mental load of what she was going through at all, through, especially with breastfeeding. But I can relate to I still feel like I'm building connection with Bex, and I didn't have that in the beginning. I could imagine it being significantly harder being the birthing parent as well, and in the situation of not even just paying, but like having loss too.
After a double loss, pregnancy anxiety, multiple traumatic births, and postpartum depression, I wanted to know how she came to the decision to try again for a third time. What Kortney shared with me is that after losing them, it wasn't just about wanting a baby. It was them, Kinsley and Cameron, and the idea of starting over and trying again felt almost debilitating at times. Not because she didn't want to be a mom, but because she already was one. And putting her body and her heart through that all again, this time in an even more invasive way, wasn't a simple decision. It was something she and her husband had to come to together in their own time, without pressure, just holding on to the belief that one day they would have a family here with them.
So Kendi was born in 22, and then my son then was born in November of 2024. So then we obviously had to do a second transfer with him. And with Kendi's transfer, it came so easy. I think that was meant for us to be easy that time. You know, we needed easy for that. But trying to get my body ready for a transfer with my son, Camden, that was a little bit harder. We had started that transfer in 23. We were supposed to go through a transfer right around Christmas time, and my body just wouldn't respond to anything. It wasn't responding to the injections. It wasn't responding to estrogen patches. It was like I went through so much, and, you know, trying to be there for my daughter and going through IVF, that was really hard. You know, she needed me, and IVF is exhausting. It's emotional. It's a huge time commitment. So, you know, we're coming right up to Christmas, and like, we have to cancel your cycle. And I'm just like, what? This isn't the Christmas I wanted. And then so finally we went through his transfer cycle on St. Patrick's Day of 24.
Okay.
So he was our lucky little guy.
And it took the first time.
It took the first time again. So, and of course that was no surprise on his gender because we only had boys left.
And so did you finally, I'm afraid to even ask, did you finally get to leave a hospital with a baby this time?
He was my redemption. I went in with him 36 weeks, and I thought it was the night of the election. And we're sitting there in triage, and like, you can't have this baby yet. Like, we're giving you shots and the steroids for his lungs. And so my body stopped contracting. I went home. They're like, listen, you are already dilated. You're pretty far along. Like, you could be here tomorrow. You could be here in 2-3 weeks. Exactly 1 week later, I went in, I pushed for 2 minutes, and he was out.
Wow.
And he was a big, beautiful, healthy baby. So, and he was easy. Finally, my dream come true.
This time, it doesn't feel the same. Not lighter, not easier, but steadier in a different way. Because now every moment is experienced with a deeper awareness of what it means to have it.
Kennedy very much knows her brother and sister. We talk about them all the time. If there's a red birdie outside, it is Cameron and Kinsley visiting us. She sees the stars in the sky. It's Cameron and Kinsley. So she'll talk to them up in the sky sometimes. So that was something I was really worried about. And, I really tried with her young because they are a part of our family. We're not a family of 4 that we look to be on the outside. We are a family of 6.
Because their story didn't end there. It didn't stay confined to a single moment or a single chapter. It continues in the way they're remembered, in the way that they're spoken about, in a way that their lives still shape everything that came after.
Can you talk about the Cuddle Cot and what you did with that?
Yeah. So the twins were born on October 22nd of 2020, but their due date was March 4th of 2021. So after they died and we had our memorial for them, I needed a purpose. I needed to be doing something for them. That was the only thing that I could do to get by. So my husband and I started a fundraiser to raise funds for a Cuddle Cot. And they are not cheap. They are several thousands of dollars. So it's not easy for hospitals to get them. And there were some hospitals in our area that didn't have them at all. If you were having a baby there, either you didn't get to have much time with your child or they were being sent to another hospital, and then you had to worry about that as well. So we raised the funds to donate a Cuddle Cot to one of our local hospitals that didn't even have one.
Wow.
So that felt really good to give back to families and parents who unfortunately were going to have to go through this. If there was something I could do to stop it, absolutely. But unfortunately, there's going to be many people to follow us.
Yeah. When did you decide about speaking about this publicly?
I think right away. It was never anything that I wanted to hold in. One, for my mental well-being, but also they may not be here. We may not physically see them every day, but they're still very much a part of our life. And keeping them active in our family and being involved as much as we can helps us. But I think also helping other families out there going through this. It is a very lonely and heavy thing to go through, whether you're a mom, you're a father, you're a grandparent, because you're also grieving your children's loss as well. So just letting those people know that they're not alone. And there's help out there. There's others that you can turn to go through it, because I had others step in for me, other parents that had gone through it. And if I didn't have that and joined some of those groups that they referred me to, I don't know where I would have been.
Do you feel that impact just from, I know we're friends on Facebook and I always saw how active you were about posting about it. Do you feel the impact from being vocal?
Yeah, I do. I've had a lot of friends or people who in my past have come back and said, wow, thank you for sharing. I went through something similar, maybe not as far as long, but what you said helps. Or they'll ask me questions or they'll talk about their children. And I want to hear about your children, and I want to share my children, Cameron and Kinsley, with you. So I never want to deter that.
Grief doesn't disappear. It doesn't resolve or neatly fade away. It changes. It softens in places. It sharpens in others. It becomes something you learn to live alongside, not something you leave behind. And over time, it makes space for other things too. Joy, love, even laughter. Not instead of grief, but right alongside of it.
Grief looks so much different 5.5 years later for me. It is not so dark and it's not so heavy. As I mentioned, that first year was brutal. I mean, I just was skating on by and doing what I could to survive that first year. Now, 5.5 years in, there's days that are harder. The holidays are always harder. Their birthday is always hard. Leading up to their birthday is always the hardest. It's just like that anticipatory grief. But it's not always so heavy, and we can talk about them now, and we can have smiles on our face when we talk about them, and it's not tears streaming down. I've learned that grief and love and grief and joy can coexist at the same exact time.
Yeah. What do their birthdays look like in your home?
Obviously, if it's on a weekend, it's a little bit easier to celebrate, but we always still do cake for them. We sing to them. And every year we try to do some kind of fundraiser for them, just so that we're giving back to other families in need.
Speaking of giving back, when you think about yourself at 21 weeks pregnant, what would you want her to know?
You're going to be okay. 21-week Kortney, 20-week Kortney is so much different than the Kortney today. I'm so much more resilient. I went through hell and back to get to where I am today.
And somewhere along the way, in the middle of everything she's carried, everything she's had to rebuild, she finds something she didn't think was possible at the beginning. That even after all of this, life can still hold moments of light.
It's okay to laugh. I mean, I remember it was a few weeks after I lost the twins. My family and my husband were laughing about something. And I said, how dare you? I said, you can't. And it was really hard for me to understand that. And they weren't in the wrong for doing what they did, like not at all. But it was just, I was still so deep in my grief that I couldn't find joy in anything. I would love to tell that girl that you will find joy again and you'll get to the other side and they'll still always be with you.
Thank you for taking the time to sit with Kortney's story, for listening to the visits to hospital rooms, the decisions, the days that followed, and the life she's continuing to build. Kinsley and Cameron are part of that story. They always will be. And maybe that's what stays with you. Not just what was lost, but everything that still exists because of them.
For the haters, come on to it now or later. Yeah. It don't matter what your name is, share your story, we'll be waiting.